that the highest King would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to Working Baptist Church Online. How are you doing this week? I hope you're okay. Well, it's a year ago today that our church family met in our church building for the last time before the first lockdown was announced. What a huge amount has happened in the year since that day. But we're grateful to God that he's brought us this far. Today is also Mothering Sunday. Did you know that originally Mothering Sunday wasn't about remembering your mum, although many of us will want to do that today? It was actually the day people returned to their mother church, to the church where they'd been nurtured and taught about Jesus. Perhaps the church where they'd been baptised. Where is that for you? Perhaps it's here, Wokingham Baptist Church, if so, wonderful. Or perhaps it's somewhere very far from here in all sorts of ways. Wherever that is, we give thanks today for the people and the church family who first taught us about Jesus. What a gift they gave us. Thank you for them, Lord. And Lord, please grant us the privilege of being that mother church for many, many people as we share the message of your love with this generation and many more to come. Now, our theme for today is part of our series based on Brené Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection, that we've been doing for a number of weeks now. And the title is Cultivating Meaningful Work, Letting Go of Self-Doubt. As it's Mothering Sunday, in the more modern sense, I thought it'd be great to talk to a hardworking mum about what meaningful work might be for them. So earlier this week, I spoke to Lois Theobald. So Lois, thanks so much for agreeing to speak to me like this today and record this for our video on Sunday. And it's lovely to chat with you because when people are watching this, hopefully it's going to be Mothering Sunday. And I really wanted to speak to a mum on Mothering Sunday. And Lois is mother of 3 and she's a member of our church and just a great person to have around. So I thought I'd ask you, Lois, a few questions relating to kind of your work and different ways that is kind of shown. So, but first of all, the crucial question is, do you have any plans for Mothering Sunday?
Well, a few plans, mostly not to cook, but I think I've left everything else to Philip, so hopefully there'll be a few surprises later.
Okay, Philip, I hope you're watching. Hope this went okay. Good stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that goes well. Lois, if people ask you what you do, which is a question we kind of often get asked in social situations, isn't it? What do you tend to say?
I think my main answer when people ask the question is I'm a teacher. Which is quite interesting because actually I'm only a teacher 2 days a week and the rest of the time I'm a mother, but actually not the rest of the time, all the time I'm a mother, but I normally say teacher.
Yeah, that's interesting. So because we tend to default to kind of what we're paid to do, I guess, but yeah, obviously that's your training and that's your profession. And I'm sure you do it very well. So obviously you consider being a teacher, that is work. But question is, do you consider other aspects of what you do to be work? Do you consider being a mum, being a parent, work?
I definitely think that, yeah, being a mum is work, and it's as hard a work as my job as a teacher, definitely. So yeah, being a mum and being a teacher are both work roles. You could probably throw in there house administrator as another role, that I probably take on as a work role. But yeah, those are my probably main roles.
Yeah, sure. And with these different things that you call work, then I'm interested to know: do you do these because you love them? Do you do them because you feel you're supposed to in some way? So, well, let's take that. So, as a teacher, do you do that because you want to be a teacher, or do you do it because you need to pay the bills, or because it gets you out of the house? Why do you do what you do?
But it's an answer that's changed over the years, really. I became a teacher because I loved it, and I wanted to be a teacher since I was sort of 6 or 7 years old. So it really was like a calling, a vocation for me. I think as I've become a mother and maybe taken on another working role, I now do it as much to pay the bills. I do still enjoy it, but I think if I had the choice, I would take my mothering role full time rather than splitting it as I have to at the moment.
Yeah, sure. And I'm sure a lot of people will identify with that thing of sometimes you just have to do a job because you just got to pay the bills, and it may not be simply because you love to do it or a sense of vocation, as you've talked about there. But obviously, if we can combine the two, then that's a wonderful thing. The theme today partly is about meaningful work and finding meaning in our work, and how that really helps us in all sorts of ways. Are you able to find meaning in your work as a teacher? What makes that meaningful for you?
I think like a lot of teachers, I got into teaching. I fell in love with teaching for being with the children and helping children, and just being that person that is sort of always there for them, and reliable, really. Through this current year as well, that's been a real standout thing when children haven't had the stability perhaps that they might have in other years. We've still turned up every day, be it on the computer or on a live chat function, to be there for them. So definitely the meaning is being there for the children and working with the children.
Yeah, brilliant. And I can really see how important that's been. And then in terms of your role as a mum, what gives that meaning for you?
Well, I think when thinking about this question, I thought back through my life, and in my early adulthood, I had some health issues, and there was a period of a good few years where I didn't think I'd be able to have children. And obviously God has granted me that amazing opportunity, not once but 3 times, as you said at the beginning. And just in receiving that gift, that gives my life meaning. And I do remember feeling very strongly just after having Emmy, actually, that this sort of was my purpose. It was a bit like I've arrived. And so the children in and being their mother really is meaningful in and of itself.
Sure. Great. Well, look, it's lovely to listen to what you've been saying about these different aspects of your work in your life, and obviously, we find we have value before God, not necessarily because of what we do, but because of who we are. And that's really important too. But thanks for sharing all that you've shared with us today. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Lois.
Well, thank you for asking.
Now, when we were thinking about what might be a great Bible passage to help us explore this theme of meaningful work and letting go of self-doubt, the one that sprang quickly to mind was the bit we're about to hear from the Apostle Paul's letter to the church in Corinth, chapter 12. It goes like this.
There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in every one, it is the same God at work.
Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all of its parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink.
And so the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, if the foot should say, "Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body," it would not for that reason stop being part of the body.
And if the ear should say, "Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body," it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be?
But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body.
The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, and the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honoured, every part rejoices with it. Now you are the body of Christ, each one of you is part of it.
Each one of you is a part of it.
Is a part of it.
It was striking to hear from Lois just now about how when she became a mum, she felt like this was her purpose. She'd arrived, she said. Of course, every woman's experience will be different. Not everyone will feel the same as that about parenthood, and that's okay. But Lois was saying being a mum for her represents meaningful work in the sense of finding something hugely purposeful and fulfilling. She also said that teaching has been meaningful work for her, and that altruistic thing of just being there for her pupils. But have you ever had a job that felt meaningless, just really pointless? I had one once. I had a summer job while I was a student one year. It was a night shift in a supermarket lorry depot. My job was to wait for the lorries to come back to the depot from delivering to a shop. The driver would open the back of the lorry and I would wheel out the big empty folded metal cages that all the goods had been stacked on, open them out again, and then put them in a row to be restacked. That was it. What was more, I did it completely on my own. After I'd been given my initial instructions on day one, no one spoke to me. No one. I just worked on my own, opening the cages, taking them off the lorry, putting them in a row for hours on end through the night. It felt soulless and, I have to say, pretty meaningless. I hated it. I lasted 10 days and then I quit. The people I felt really sorry for were people doing the same job in other parts of the depot who probably couldn't quit because they weren't doing it for a bit of summer holiday money like I was, but were doing it to pay the bills. That's hard. Brené Brown, in her book The Gifts of Imperfection, says that according to her research, meaningful work is one of the keys to a contented, resilient, fulfilling life. So how can we try to make sure we're doing meaningful work? Let's be clear, by meaningful work, I don't necessarily mean paid work. It could be voluntary. It could be serving in a club in some way or a hobby. Any activity in which we invest our time and energy to make something happen. One way of defining meaningful work is to say it's work that's making a difference. It's almost exactly a year, isn't it, since the pandemic officially began. One aspect of this awful year has been that lots of people have discovered the value of making a difference. For those who've been able to, volunteering in the effort to help the most vulnerable, or simply keeping an eye out for an older neighbour or relative, has not only helped those people, it's helped the helpers too. This meaningful work has been good for their well-being and helped them get through. So making a difference is key. Brené Brown says that in her research, another key to finding work meaningful is aligning our work with our gifts and talents. We might say aligning it with the way that God has made us. In the reading we heard from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, he's talking about how each member of the community is like a part of a body and contributes their particular shape and gifting to it in a way that may feel insignificant to them, but is actually indispensable to the health and the full functioning of the whole. He's affirming that God has placed gifts and talents and skills, big or small, in all our lives, and using them matters. What are the gifts that God has put in your life, I wonder? And don't think you haven't got any. We all do. God has put them there. And putting those gifts to good use in conjunction with other people often is a key to finding meaning in our work and in our lives. Brown actually says when we suppress those gifts and talents, it does us harm. She says, squandering our gifts brings distress to our lives. As it turns out, it's not merely benign or too bad if we don't use the gifts that we've been given. We pay for it with our emotional and physical well-being. When we don't use our talents to cultivate meaningful work, we struggle with feelings of emptiness, frustration, resentment, shame, disappointment, fear, and even grief. So we need to use our gifts. One of the barriers to using our gifts to the full, Brown says, is self-doubt. We doubt whether what we have to offer is really helpful or worthwhile. How can little old me make a difference? In the reading, the Apostle Paul addresses just this point. In it, we find the foot is riddled with self-doubt. The foot thinks that because it's not a hand, it has nothing to bring to the world, nothing of value to offer. But we all know the body needs feet. So the foot needs to get over its self-doubt and offer to the world what only a foot can bring by helping the body do stuff like walking around, standing up. And it's the same with you and me. God knew exactly what he was doing when he gave to you the gifts he did. So the world needs you, just as you are. We find meaning in our work and in our lives when we use our God-given talents. One more way to find meaning in our work. Jesus said that part of his purpose in coming into the world was so that people may have life and have it to the full. In other words, God is committed to our flourishing as human beings. So as God's people, God's servants, that's part of our purpose too, to help people flourish so they can live full lives that are rich in every way. So have a think. How does the work that you do contribute to human beings flourishing? If you're a nurse or a teacher or a mum, as Lois was saying, or a dad, that may seem quite obvious, but it's true of almost any other work that we do too, if we approach it in the right way. If you're an engineer or a scientist or a carer or an actor, or a refuse collector, or an administrator, or a farmer, or a prayer. Most work, paid or unpaid, can be done in a way that contributes to people living full and happy lives. There's meaning in it. And I'd go wider. Perhaps you remember in our series on creation care that we did a while back. In Genesis it says the calling of humans is to be good stewards of the world that God has made. So we're doing meaningful work when we're stewarding God's creation, caring for it. What does that look like for you? Of course, it's a great privilege to get paid to do the work that you love, that you find meaningful. I have that privilege myself, and it's one I don't take for granted. Indeed, many would say it's worth being paid less to do a job you love than to be paid more to do a job that you might find pointless or even suspect is slightly harmful in some way. But let's be real, most people in the world have very little choice about what work, paid work, they do. For so many, to say that their work pays the bills and puts food on the table for them and theirs, that may be meaning and purpose enough. For others, the way to meaning and contentment will be by fitting around a job we might find quite dull and unchallenging, some other activity which we find more fulfilling. So doing it as a hobby or giving a part of our time to something creative while the rest of the time goes to making sure the bills are paid. Brené Brown talks about people having slash careers. In other words, perhaps I'm a minister slash musician. Nice idea. Or perhaps this person over here is a plumber slash artist. How about you? Are you a mum slash teacher slash novelist? With flexible ways of working nowadays, especially since the pandemic, could we find ways to build more meaningful things into our work patterns, pay the bills and grow our gifts? Here's the thing. If you have a dream of doing something more in tune with your passions one day, hold on to it, nurture it. Could you start to think, is there a first step I could take towards doing it one day? Or is there some way I can use my gifts now, clear some space in my schedule so I can fit it in? Or maybe I just need to think through my attitude and approach to my day job now. Does thinking of it as somehow contributing to human flourishing or stewarding of creation give it new meaning for me? And like we said a couple of weeks back, at some point it may be right to think about taking a step of faith and stepping out of the boat. Because when our work gets aligned with our gifts and the things we love to do and achieves something that we feel makes a difference, not only will we be more productive, but we'll end up feeling a whole lot healthier, more fulfilled and happier too. Amen to that. Now, as part of these service videos each week, we've been posting some questions for people to consider individually as you're watching, or indeed in the week, perhaps as part of a group. And I know that many of our small groups have been using these questions on a regular basis. So here's some for this week. First of all, you might like to read again the reading from today, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 4 to 27. Then, have a think back over your life. What are the things which, when you do them, make you come alive? What is it that you love to do? Then, what do these verses from 1 Corinthians have to say to someone who feels they have nothing to offer in terms of gifts and skills? How do you find meaning in the work, paid or unpaid, that you currently do? How does it make a difference? In other words, how does it add to human flourishing? How does it help steward God's world? What is preventing you from doing work you would love to do or feel called to do? And is self-doubt an issue in that? And lastly, What is one step you could take towards some work or creative activity more in line with your gifts and strengths? And then how about you make a plan and then go and do something about it? Now, a quick reminder that if you're watching in time, there's a communion and prayer time on Zoom at 11 o'clock this Sunday morning. Joining details are in the news sheet. Don't worry if you're a few minutes late. Get a little bread and wine or similar and join us anyway. We'd love to see you. And church members, don't forget, church meeting is this Tuesday evening, 7:45 on Zoom. See you there. In a moment, the band will lead us in a song of worship, which celebrates how we find our true confidence in the love of God who made us and has gifted us in all sorts of ways. I am who you say I am. But for now, whatever the coming week brings, may you find all sorts of ways to bring life and love to those you meet. May you make a difference, and in doing so, may you know God's blessing. Amen. Bye for now.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last he has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in all his love.